This video is intended to describe a lightblade wand named Coherence. Joining me on this extensive crystalline dissertation shall be my very whimsical stick figure chakra map to work as illustrative guide to various stimulation cues based on the crystals seen in this vast little apparatus. It's a rather clandestine, compact, high-yield construct as a preface that's roughly about 8 inches, 21 centimeters in length. So it's a very high yield power to size ratio construct, that for a gentleman spy wizard, as a little joke. Without further ado, I'm getting straight into it. And as a appropriate preface, I'll be discussing the blade band scaffolding seen much like so, which vaguely resembles a figure eight to serve as the sequential recirculation scaffolding of the entirety of the construct. Starting off with the transmutation ratio, to serve as a very good baseline backbone grounding agent, consisting of hematite and smoky quartz in ignition sequence, offset all the way so around this lateral band, seen going down this hand band that's just to be concealed by the leather, as well as this lateral band, and this hand band as well, and the main heart of the construct's band, would all be the transmutation scaffolding in its own closed-loop circuit quadrant seen like so. Once again, the hematite is a very, very potent iron-based mineral that takes all excessive radial stray energy and firmly grounds it through the root chakra, into the earth stars, into the earth meridian matrix for reprocessing, in tandem with smoky quartz providing the same energetic stimulation function to essentially serve as further composting of all excess energy and firmly ground it through the root, into the earth stars, into the earth meridian matrix for reprocessing. Hence the two in tandem have been dubbed the transmutation ratio to serve as a very strong contingency, particularly for high-yield constructs, to ensure the grounding sequence of this entirety of this device is well addressed with its own quadrant of this particular ignition sequence, which once again encourages taking all excess energy through the root, into the earth stars, into the earth for reprocessing, that can also serve as a etheric dialysis for constant transmutation of energy by grounding into the earth and discharging and recirculating very quickly. As well as it can be considered a layer of etheric Teflon that'd be very discouraging for stagnant negativities to maintain inside the auric field, as well as exterior energies that would be bombarding the field get rapidly dispersed like a bypass safety. So that's an important aspect why I always discuss that first as a good preface, not to mention for this rendition being a very, very top-heavy design. Starting off with the coherence ratio seen right here as the primary blade band. Starting off right here will be 4 clear quartz to work as a neutral acceleration of the energy, going into golden healer quartz, which is an essential high heart gold white light source attunement frequency. When it comes to vibrational engineering endeavors, that's very, very obviously evidently advantageous. To have a very clean high heart stimulant source attunement to the heart of creation definitely can put the source in sorcery. So it's a very, very advantageous frequency to be subcapacitated with the rest of the ignition sequence, which we mentioned right now. Next in sequence would be the classic lovely lapis lazuli, which is a very famous blue-ray crystal, favorite of millions for thousands of years for a very good reason. This blue-ray wonder of the mineral kingdom was highly prized by many schools of magic, particularly the Egyptian caste of the Magi, who would utilize it as a resonance to Isis, the goddess that is quite famous in the pantheon. And the aspect of what makes it very practical and applicable for today's utilization is its wind concentration, 5th and 6th chakra stimulation of great notarization in human magical history. And so the aspect of what that makes it very special as well is the 5th and 6th chakras. Alignment with this makes for very powerful, higher perception, sovereign truth engagement, which is very conducive towards siddhis or psychic abilities and past life recall, and most importantly, the application of past life magical masteries into the conscious self integration embodied as their truth. Then going into root-talated quartz to work as a massive accelerant of the energy of this entire sequence, which is clear quartz with bands of rutile in there, which works to supercharge other ambient frequencies. I'll be clearing my throat quite a bit because this is a lot to cover. So right here, next to the root-plated quartz would be purple fluorite. Purple fluorite is a fantastic wind elemental 6th and 7th chakra stimulant, yet is perhaps one of the most coherence aiding frequencies in the mineral kingdom in the terms of aspect of bringing alignment and cross interference mitigation between the left and right hemispheres, aka the awakened third eye. With no conflicting thoughts between the two hemispheres and there's unified field alignment, that is very promoting to the awakened third eye. And fluorite has a very special, unique stimulation to that junction point to basically bring chaotic energies that are disparate and put it into a focus of order, which is very, very advantageous for coherence. Hence, fluorite in all coherence platforms so far is of the essence to honor the archetypal designation to maintain a coherent field, to bring energetic alignment and focus. Just like laser light, you have aspects of light that are disparate, but until they're focused into a coherent beam, it does not actually generate a heat to focus to the light to be a laser. For example, with my little hand gestures. So it's very effective for bringing chaos into order quite simply and be very, very clearing to the mind. As a little joke, recipients of this construct previously have claimed as a joke that it feels when they engage this construct that it's flossing the brain because it's basically removing the chaotic separations between the left and right hemispheres for whole brain thinking, once again, aka awakened third eye. Very effective for that purpose. Then going into the same sequence of the golden healer quartz, the lapis, the root-plated quartz, and fluorite, and so on, until it grounds back into the transmutation ratio to work to take the excessive high-frequency energy and give it a ground point to, of course, encourage the magic being real. To make it real is the concept of the root word of magic. Then this auxiliary lateral band seen right here is a rather exotic rendition of tourmalated quartz, which is actually clear quartz with black tourmaline seen in the structure. This is a very heavy 5th chakra blade, so I feel extreme stimulation as I do my best to chronicle its existence. So it's a work in progress as I notarize this construct. Sorry, pardon my digression. Back on target. The clear quartz right here with the black tourmaline in the structure makes for a very fantastic purification because clear quartz naturally ambiently amplifies any other frequency in proximity resonance. So having black tourmaline inside the structure works to amplify black tourmaline, which is a very famous transmuter of negativity in this age, to once again encourage rapid dispersal into the earth for reprocessing, naturally amplified by the clear quartz. It's a very fantastic serendipitous synergistic combination. Then to amplify that purification into Larimar, which is another quite amazing Blu-ray crystal of 5th and 6th chakra stimulation of water and fire, creating a very powerful, calming oasis empowerment frequency of one's truth, particularly, and also very effective for voice, clarity, projection of conveyance of one's truth, obviously. So that's another very powerful, prominent 5th chakra stimulant of this day and age. Going into the tourmalated quartz seen right here, then going into lovely specimens of sugilite, which are very opulent fine-grade beads. Sugilite is a very famous, actually, I take that back, it's not quite that famous, but very powerful, I meant to say, 6th and 7th, 8th non-physical chakra stimulant back to one's godhead, which makes for a fantastic bubble of light energy that is very shielding to the field, as well as it's famously known as a stone of dreams to encourage dream work as well as protect one in their dreams, and is most importantly very applicable for maintaining one's conscious alignment of their highest dreams of why they have indeed incarnated in the human avatar and their dharmic path. So it makes for a very powerful dharmic accelerant to keep one aligned to their highest aspirations of incarnation while protecting them in the process, which is very, very nice. Then the tourmalated quartz, then the Larimar, then so on, completing the sequence, grounding back into the transmutation scaffolding to once again encourage the grounding of the entirety of the continuity, and like so. Okay, so that of course would just be the blade band scaffolding mentioned thus far. Next I'll be getting into the intensity of where the heart shall be, after I discuss the purpose of the leather. So, in this rendition, the leather is yet to be installed on this section where the handle technically is. So, for illustrative purposes, I'll wrap with one hand right here to do my best to illustrate the concept once it's fully installed. So the aspect of the leather is far more than aesthetic, but it is indeed a functional component. So the purpose of this lovely lapis blue leather is, of course, another color range fortification of the fifth chakra stimulation, very complementary to the crystalline ignition sequence, as well as it's a way to insulate the energy so that you can think of these currents running like so, and once this is installed and insulated, it'll have less energy leakage, so the energy is transferring more effectively through the primary and secondary blade bands seen right here, as well as a way to protect the hand bands as they're being utilized and wielded, of course. So it has many purposes, like I always say, far more than aesthetic. On the same note, that's why this white leather is here as well, to work as the engine cover or the hood cover as a little joke, to give a concept. So white, of course, is a nice diffusing of the 7 rays, which makes it a very uniform color therapy resonator, which is very nice for the full spectrum, particularly by the main complexity of the engine. And like I mentioned, it also serves to insulate this entire complex termination network, so energy leakages are mitigated, so it's running more efficiently through this blade band as well as the entire continuity without the stray radials of such a complex closed loop circuit being just leaked. It's for efficiency, quite frankly. But also, it works to protect all these subtle stacked crystals, as this device is intended to be wielded as a wand, so that these crystalline organs do not run away from the entity before us. I think that's pretty comprehensive. And of course, once that's properly installed, it's going to have this symbolism of the Eye of Horus installed, which is a very classic ancient Egyptian mystery symbol, which I don't need to go much into because there's already a great amount to cover still. But that's the concept right there of the leather and the magical sigil badging, which will be installed once this video is complete. Now back to the task at hand of the main heart of this highly compact, high-yield crystal pistol. So, starting off with this tourmalated quartz, a bigger chunk, just like the blade subcapacitation seen right here, but in a much more prominent, bigger dose for an effective purpose of being an amplification of purification, which can serve like an etheric vacuum cleaner that's very discouraging for distorted negative vibrations to stay in the field, which is very advantageous for the entirety of the whole. And before I go further in that concept too, is that every single crystal I'll be discussing right now has been grounded into a primary wire that served as the main vein for the construct seen right here, consisting of copper, brass, and silver to be the main conducting vein of the entire construct. So every single crystal I mention right now has been somehow, some way grounded into this primary wire, so it's generating significant vibrational compound interest as a crystalline entity. Just to get that out of the way. So all these aspects, of course, all work together in a synergistic combination for this entire vibratory threshold. Okay, like I mentioned, that's a large dose of the tourmalated quartz, seen like so, and the main heart of the construct is that of a smoky celestial quartz. So smoky quartz, like mentioned for the transmutation scaffolding, is very effective for grounding energy, but the celestial growth structure has a very unique alignment to the human auric field for a very far out purpose, which I'll do my best to keep consolidating, coherent, for it gets quite meta quite quick when I do my best to describe it in a linear, rational fashion. So the celestial in the structure can work as an auto-regulation of the entire crystalline composition to resonate at the ideal frequency pitch to the wielder's requirements moment to moment, which gets rather complicated to describe, hence I digress and say that quite often when I cover this subject, which is pretty common. So the aspect of the celestial works like a regulator to balance the frequency pitch of the entire construct to the most comfortable, optimal resonance at all times, kind of like a auto-regulator or a surge protector to ensure the frequency is not getting too ahead of itself, but it's always an idyllic, comfortable equilibrium with the resonance of the higher self's field of the conscious template wielding this construct. I think that will basically cover it with a few more closing remarks on that concept. But the aspect of the smoky celestial quartz is quite vast and very reactive, as well as very adaptive to the wielder's requirements on any given moment for spiritual information, as well as practical vibrational broadcast application. But it's a very long story, so that's enough for now. And so right here at the very apex of the engine is a very prominent special high-grade quality of aquamarine, which is a lovely beryl family crystal which is related to emerald, which oftentimes has an 8.5 out of 10 the hardness scale, which means that lovely oceanic blue ray has perhaps one of the strongest dense atomical structures for the stimulation of water of the 4th and 5th chakras. And also, of course, the true precious stone of antiquity that most mortals have heard of, because it's one of those classic famous stones for a very good reason. But it is also a quintessential communication clearing of speaking from the heart, which is very, very effective for 4th and 5th chakra stimulation linkage in one of the strongest vibrations possible, not to mention, just like lapis, with significant human belief backing that crystal as a crystal of magic and a special precious stone, which goes a long way in the thought forms of human consciousness. Anyway, enough digressions there. So moving on to pneumite, seen right here in a prominent placement so that no matter what, the recipient will be able to see this little guy right here, which of great significance. Pneumite is a very obscure black ray crystal that is a long story, which I'll just keep relevant because there's already much to discuss, and this will take a long, no matter how I slice it. But pneumite is a very, very effective primordial earth resonator that taps into the crystalline structure of a crystal that is 4.5 billion years old, one of the most ancient crystals we can utilize in these applications to date. So it puts one in a very powerful void resonance that would be considered the void of creation, aka a very powerful boon to authentic sorcery from that void configuration capacity alignment, which is very, very powerful for enhancing one's magic, one's deepest truth, as well as grounding it into reality. Very potent stuff. Then I'll discuss this lovely clear white ray crystal seen right here in a large dose named naturalite. Naturalite is perhaps one of the most powerful third eye crown chakra stimulants in the mineral kingdom of the top 3, I would definitely say. So its vibratory threshold is exceedingly high, very appropriate for this third eye buster of a little guy right here. But the aspect of naturalite with its extreme high frequency stimulation has, like I mentioned, one of the top 3 third eye stimulations in the mineral kingdom of intensive higher chakra activation that opens the entire conscious self, higher self perception as a two-way channel, very effective for spirit guide communication as well as dream craft as well. And quite simply, this vibratory threshold literally is very discouraging to lower frequency vibrations from resonating from the field when active. And what that means, of course, too, is it works like a very, very powerful force of light that innately shields the field to a very, very, very high threshold for practical application of lesser densities being very incompatible with its resonance by itself. Now, of course, in that dimension, this guy is running through the entirety of the closed loop circuit, so it's quite powerful placement for the entirety of the construct. Then right here would be seraphinite. Seraphinite is another lovely green ray crystal named after the seraphim archangels, which works as a very fantastic full light body activator and a very effective dismantler of any patterns of dis-ease found in the system that is not of one's highest divine factory blueprint setting alignment, quite simply. So it works very effective as a practical master healer frequency, and even a small dose goes a very long way in this very dynamic closed loop reactive circuit, and a very, very powerful master healer of all capacities. Speaking of master healers, complementary to seraphinite just mentioned, this would be Tibetan black quartz right here, a very small dose. But Tibetan black quartz, much like seraphinite, is a very powerful full light body activator from bottom to top, and works just like seraphinite to diligently, with vigilance, dismantle any patterns of dis-ease that would be not of one's divine configuration. So together they work very fantastic as full light body activators as themselves. Then right here would be tanzanite, which is also found in the thumb engagement, which I will get back to, but I guess I'll cover some ground here as a double dose. Tanzanite is a lovely blue-ray wind elemental crystal of impeccable heart-mind coherence, of extreme stimulation of the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakras for the impeccable elliptical alignment of that coherent field of the heart-mind coherence. So when it comes to the metaphysical adept, I consider that an absolute essential achievement to maintain one's heart-mind coherence, which of course increases one's conscious self-perception of one's heart's guidance, which is more connected obviously to the quantum field of all that is. So that's a very, very effective frequency for that exact heart-mind coherence stimulation, while successfully, succinctly I should say also, activating the entire typical heart, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakras. So it's a very, very effective frequency for that purpose, and to be a perfect contingency to that higher top-heavy activation would be a little bit of blue zincite. Zincite is based on a very powerful zinc composition, which is a very powerful fire elemental frequency virtue unrivaled mineral kingdom that has nearly explosive hurricane force of activation of the solar plexus, the sacrum, and the root chakra as the most intensive activation lower three. It literally is very volatile by itself, so it's been well engineered for many containments and contingencies and smoothers, but the thing is, it really of course works very effectively toward full dynamic primal lower three activation, which is great in tandem with the tanzanite, which covers the entire spectrum as well. And also, luckily, it's a blue-ray variety, which of course focuses that fire further as it completes its dominant frequency subroutine into hitting the 5th chakra for clearing the densities of blocks 1's truth as well. Then right here would be fulgurite, which is petrified lightning, which was a spirit tool utilized by shamans of antiquity to literally resonate the power of lightning to amplify their prayers. As well as, since it is literally lightning caught in sand, it works as a very powerful lightning fast full light body activator as well, and was utilized of course to intensify the lightning by resonance through the amplification of the practitioners of antiquity to resonate their magic to make it stronger. Very cool fact. Then right here is another celestial mysterious crystal of black tektite, which is a product of meteorite impacting sand. But luckily it's a black ray crystal, so the celestial heaven to earth vibration caught in this cosmic jolt impact into creation is luckily of a black ray nature, which has a very strong ground up foundational raising of vibration, so a very comfortable way to rise vibrations from the ground up in a very, very nice fashion. And that would be the entirety of the complex of little engine scene right here that could. So like I mentioned before, this, of course, sequence is contained in this quadrant of the transmutation scaffolding to reroute and encourage the grounding of the energy before it continues into the handbands seen right here, which further ground the excess radial. Now, of course, as a little conceptual break, with all these high vibratory yield constructs, the paramount importance of the transmutation scaffolding becomes more obvious, particularly with what I get into next. So first things first, I'll discuss the thumb engagement and use this nifty magical book as a prop to do so. So right here, this would be the thumb engagement designed to obviously have the thumb engage like so. A little self-evident, but I'm very thorough. The foundation of the thumb engagement is consisting of Libyan gold tektite, which is another celestial mysterious stone of gold ray potency of the solar plexus and sacrum of very high yield, which is a cardinal fire with storm overtones that activate the entire auric field as a whole as a golden ray of illumination, which was utilized by the pharaohs of antiquity, which I will omit just to consolidate time because it's already a long video as is. But anyway, that's the application of being a very powerful sovereign enforcement of a dharmic accelerant of one's highest path manifest, particularly with the high induction of the concentration of mind liberation of this design, it's very effective to actually have like the will to act in tandem with the truth and clarity to, of course, do something with it. So that's where this little Libyan gold tektite comes into practical application, which has been spliced into, once again, another dose of tanzanite, like mentioned, the impeccable heart-mind coherence stimulant mineral kingdom, hence they're in one closed-loop sequence, with a border of clear quartz and blue sapphire. Blue sapphire is another precious stone of antiquity, well praised and very famous to most mortals as the true precious stone of antiquity. Blue sapphire is actually the Blu-ray cousin to ruby, which has about roughly a 9 out of 10 the hardness scale, which means its Blu-ray dense atomical structure is virtually unrivaled in the mineral kingdom for the stimulation of the 5th and 6th chakras of wind elemental correspondence of extreme sharp potency. Hence, it's a great stone of precious royalty and one sovereign truth. Strength of mind comes to mind as I discuss it. And so the aspect also of this intensively high yield Blu-ray crystal of true precious antiquity is perhaps, like I said, the most powerful concentration stimulant of the 5th and 6th chakras, which inherently encourages one's sovereign mastery and order in one's thoughts and reality to act with wisdom in their appointed path, which is a very, very special, opulent, regal application right here in this closed-loop circuit developed for the thumb. So that's a very nice exotic thumb engagement. Now, moving on to the extensive blade facing seen right here. So, when I mentioned one component here, as symmetrically as possible, it's also represented on the other side of the blade facing. Just as a quick little preface for even continuity emanation. So starting off with another absolutely classic praised Blu-ray crystal of antiquity, turquoise, seen right here. Turquoise, of course, being a Blu-ray 5th chakra stimulant, is quite famous literally across the world. Besides just First Nation lore, it's actually world famous, which I'm going to admit once again, so I'm not ranting and diatribing, making this video longer than it has to be. But the point that's relevant here is turquoise is a very precious praised stone, just like lapis, a favorite of millions for thousands of years for a very good reason. The aspect of turquoise is a full elemental composition of earth, fire, water, and wind, the terrestrial 4 elements, in one 5th chakra concentration, which is distinctly a stone of wholeness and truth and full pranic regulation through the entire system. Truly an incredible wonder of the mineral kingdom that is absolutely astonishing. And of course, it's very classically beautiful too. And moving on to another very special component, this would be Metatron's cube embossed upon an amethyst flat on both sides. So amethyst, of course, is a classic, common, thank goodness, famous violet ray stimulant that stimulates the 6th and 7th chakras and the non-physical chakras as well for higher self engagement or spiritual perception, which is a very, very effective way to keep one's energy in divine alignment, which is very classically utilized, which I'm just going to continue on. And with the Metatron's cube embossed upon it, makes for a very powerful force of order that's resonant to the sphere of Archangel Metatron, who is a force of order in the realm of creation and sacred geometric master. I'll go ahead and continue on, but that's the idea of Metatron's cube being incorporated here. It's not easy to stay focused on digressions when there's so much to talk about. That's why I have to police myself in these videos. But anyway, Metatron's cube with amethyst. Then going into blue calcite seen right here. Blue calcite is a lovely calcium-based Blu-ray crystal of fire elemental correspondence for both the 5th and 6th chakras. Since it's a Blu-ray fire energy, it makes for a very powerful burning off and clearing of stagnancies from the 5th and 6th chakras simultaneously, which is one of the few crystals in the mineral kingdom to hold a fire Blu-ray emanation for the purpose of being very clearing to any dysfunctions or dysregulations or impediments of particularly the zones of the 5th and 6th chakras in tandem, which is a very nice way to, of course, clear any aspects of truth impediments from the mind and embodying them into the self. Fantastic underrated crystal right there. And with that much clearing capacity, the perfect contingency in sequence would be blue lace agate, seen right here. Blue lace agate is the most stabilizing fifth chakra instrument in the mineral kingdom of water elemental correspondence. So having a very stabilized concentration of the fifth chakra is, once again, inherently self-evidently advantageous, because speaking is a very useful trait for humans, and so having an impeccably stabilized fifth chakra also brings extreme stabilization to one's impeccable word. In theory, that is. And so the aspect of having the extreme clearing capacity as well as the stabilization in tandem is a surefire way to have the most stimulated, stabilized fifth chakra impediments being discharged very quickly, which is very, very, once again, designed for maximum advantageous application. And at the end of the blade face right here would be lepidolite. Lepidolite is a lovely purple ray lithium potassium based crystal that is an absolute serenity agent in the mineral kingdom. It has a very extremely calming effect on the mind and the entire nervous system and the emotional spectrum as well, to be the quintessential serenity frequency, which I apply quite often in the aspects of its own concentrated platform, to be the most powerful anti-anxiety vibrational output possible. And so a little dose with this much truth is to help to insulate the auric field and the ego-mind identity from this much truth, to keep one calm in the center of all this amazing insight, which is inevitably developed to produce with this much top-heavy higher chakra concentration, to keep one's cool by design. And that would be the entire of the blade facing. Next, I'll be discussing the core as well as the white selenite hewn to the core, and the kyanites and the focalizers, and we're almost there. Okay, so the core itself is out of oak, which comes from my good friend back here in my backyard, Mount Shasta, seen right there, tip of my pen. Oak is a very good, dense, atomical wood grain, carbon-based structure, which works as a perfect strengthening frequency, particularly for a very high frequency emanation. Having a very dense carbon-based contingency having it built around that is very helpful for strengthening the energy of the field and making a carbon-based resonance. And as well as, of course, with that regard too, works a fantastic carbon transference of the silica nature of this entire construct, which is its digression, which I must stop now. But anyway, it's an oak core, which has its own steeped legend and lore that's quite vast, which I'm going to omit again. And the selenite seen right here, which is a white crystal hewn to the oak core, has a distinct purpose as well. So, white selenite by itself is a very fantastic 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakra swing back to one's Godhead for very powerful clearing of debris between one's conscious self and one's higher self. And with that high frequency induction, works as a divine transmutation to burn off stagnant energies from top to bottom, which by itself makes it a very powerful master healer for any application, particularly when it comes to clearing debris between one's conscious self and one's higher self. Very, very advantageous. But where it truly shines in any given light tech device, after this 33 minutes of this dissertation, in this closed-loop circuit, it works and synergizes with the entirety of the crystal group like so. With this entire closed-loop reactive circuit, selenite can purify all of these crystals in a sequence. It can work to amplify or intensify all these crystals in a sequence, but perhaps most importantly, brings continuity. It also brings equilibrium and harmonization of the entire threshold of this device. So that works as a very quintessential, essential platform for the entirety of the construct's maximum efficiency for a very effective spirit tool in that regard. That's very dynamic, most importantly, based on one's higher guidance and one's spiritual divine intervention made manifest, to put it quite simply. So that's the selenite in a nutshell. That's quite critical for the entire construct's peak efficiency performance. Then the kyanites seen affixed to the selenite have their distinct purpose as well. So before I discuss the individual nodes of kyanite, kyanite is the most rapid transfer of energy in the mineral kingdom, hence they play a critical role in the ignition sequence for maximum transferable effectivity. So the aspect of the kyanites are so quick that I will whimsically utilize my penmanship in a very fast way, do my best to illustrate with my whimsical stick figure the transference ratios of these kyanites embedded here. So black kyanite is the most rapid transfer of black-gray energy into the earth absolute quick as possible, which serves like another surge protector to encourage the energy grounding the earth to increase the tangibility of the vibratory output broadcast. Then combine that with orange kyanite, which is the most effective sacrum liberant, that's a fantastic word, liberator of any impediments of one's creativity to the highest threshold, transferring to the entire system. In tandem with green kyanite to bridge any heart chakra blocks of any kind from all directions, as well as blue kyanite seen right here, which is a very powerful third eye cement of the right and left hemispheres, working to mitigate and bridge past cross interference between the left and right hemispheres to once again awaken the third eye, aka whole brain thinking, mitigated cross interference. So that makes for a very effective rapid transfer rebuffering and rerouting of energy that also serves as a way to make the transference of this broadcast far more effective and potent for tangible magic once again. And so in that aspect, the four together also serve as another layer of etheric Teflon to mitigate any stagnancies that be maintained in the field by giving constant rerouting and buffering from all directions to transfer through any wavelength distortions manifesting as a dis-ease in some variety as well. So, like I mentioned, it's another layer of etheric Teflon. It's very discouraging for stagnancies to compromise the energy field integrity that would manifest as a physical ailment. And right here would be the focalizers developed to take the excessive amount of the energy of this little figure 8 scenery here, grounded into the primary wire to be able to successfully transfer the broadcast of this entire closed-loop device and give it a focus, hence a focalizer. That would be consisting of titanium aura quartz, which is a product of modern man-made alchemy that is pressure bonding titanium to clear quartz. So, when you do so, the titanium of the clear quartz will be naturally amplified to make a very powerful full rainbow light body activation that is also very insulating to the auric field and very strengthening for the integrity of the entire chakra column as well. And that works too to intensify a focus that goes into the clear quartz seen right here to be the absolute neutral amplification of broadcast energy. So the aspect of clear quartz, like mentioned a few times in this construct, works as the most powerful neutral ambient accelerant of other energies, which is very, very user dependent oftentimes to broadcast one's prayers or intentions. So of course this focus of the energy has the clear quartz to make the most neutral, clear broadcast focus while grounded into the primary wire to capitalize on the closed loop reactive circuit as effective as possible. And that would be the entirety of the crystalline composition mentioned thus far. And so the aspect as a critical highlight is that this construct, of course, is very diversified for activating the entire nodes in various ways, yet the extreme concentration of the construct is that of the 5th and 6th, 7th chakras, with a great deal of heart-mind coherence, of course, integrated into the construct with many versatile purposes. So it's inherently a very top-heavy chakra stimulant blade of intensive, stabilized, clearing high vibratory threshold of the higher chakras, quite simply by design. Well, that would be it. This would be the 4th rendition of Coherence of 2025, and may the force be with us all.